Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. It's officially 2025. It seems like it's going to be a pretty big year for gaming in general. So what I want to do today is go over my PlayStation 2025 predictions. We're just going to dive right into it with number one, talking about Death Stranding 2. I have it written down here that Death Stranding 2 will get a release date gameplay trailer during the first State of Play that occurs of 2025. And the release date is going to be set for Q3 2025. It will also receive a dedicated State of Play prior to its release, and players overall will be excited about it, and they will like the gameplay that is shown. So this is my first prediction for 2025. I think that Death Stranding 2 is a game that, based off of what we've heard from Kojima, sounds like it's pretty much ready to go. They're just kind of waiting to actually announce the release date. The fact that something like GTA 6 hasn't locked in its release date yet is probably what's stopping a lot of video game publishers and developers from giving us these dates. But we're going to move right along here to my second prediction, which is that Fair Games, a title I think a lot of people forgot about, Fair Games gameplay will be shown during the first State of Play of 2025, and it will receive backlash. It will release in Q2 of 2025, and it will fail to gain a player base and have a similar trajectory to Concord, but not be as big of a failure overall. But I do believe the studio will end up closing. I know that this is not a very positive or exciting prediction kicking off 2025, but I am just trying to be as realistic as possible with my predictions. I think that this is a game that, frankly, is just doomed. I'm not really sure that it's going to fare much better than Concord, because there seems to be literally no interest in it whatsoever, but maybe I'll be wrong. Moving on to prediction number 3, we're talking about Marathon. Marathon gameplay will be shown during the second State of Play in 2025, and the reaction will be mixed overall. Some will really like it, others not so much. It will get a release date, and it's going to launch in Q3 of 2025. And yeah, that's pretty much all I'm going to say about Marathon. I think that Bungie's next title is not going to make the same type of waves or have the same type of splash, if you will, that the previous titles have had, but I do think it will be enough just based off of the fact that it's Bungie, and, you know, they do have usually very, very good shooting mechanics. Well, not even usually. I mean, every time they make a game, they have good shooting mechanics. So I think that will be enough to, you know, allow the game to find somewhat of an audience and allow it to be something that Sony can support continually. Moving on to the fourth prediction, Ghost of Yotei will get a release date gameplay trailer during the second State of Play that occurs this year, and it will release in Q3 of 2025. Players will overall be very impressed with what was shown, and they will feel confident in Sucker Punch's direction. We will also get a dedicated State of Play prior to its launch. So yeah, Ghost of Yotei, we had it revealed in September of last year, and they said they're targeting 2025. Now, if you notice with all the games I've listed, there's not a single game here that I listed for Q4 of 2025, and there's a reason for that. I think Sony is trying to avoid releasing anything substantial. I do think that everything here, maybe except Fair Games, would be considered substantial from Sony. I think they're going to try to avoid Q4 2025 for obvious reasons. Moving on to the fifth prediction, Q1 of 2025 overall will be lighter for PlayStation first-party games as well as console exclusives, but Sony will announce 1 to 2 games which will fall in the category of remakes, remasters, or collections that will be set to release in Q1 and Q2 of 2025. The second half of 2025 ultimately, though, will be stacked. So this is something I wanted to point out, because going into this month, as well as February, March, and even April, as of right now, Sony has nothing lined up. So when we talk about a State of Play, the first State of Play that will occur this year, I'm thinking it's going to happen potentially this month, maybe in February. And I think Sony's going to have 1 to 2 things, like I said here, not going to be major first-party releases, but things that are more low-key to kind of put something out there from their studios and have a little something to offer. I do think it's a little bit strange that Sony has nothing lined up for the first 3 to 4 months of this year. That's actually not usually the case for them. We're going to move on to the sixth prediction here. Sony will no longer hold showcases outside of a new generational console launch. So there will be no showcase for 2025. However, State of Play will be their new format going forward. I think basically what we saw Sony do in 2024 is going to be the norm, where every quarter, roughly, they're going to do a State of Play where we will see some first party showing up. I do think that one thing that changed with Sony's approach with State of Plays in 2024 is they were much more willing to reveal new first-party titles like Astrobot and Ghost of Yotei, and even Fizzant with Hideo Kojima. These are things that prior to 2024, they never did in State of Plays. Those are definitely announcements that traditionally would have been reserved for showcases. And I think that what we're going to discover in 2025 is that Sony is not doing showcases outside of when they're ready to release a new console. I think that basically once a generation, maybe twice at this point, we can expect a massive showcase or really big one. But outside of that, I think the norm is just going to be State of Plays. But the good news is, I think because of that, these State of Plays have a much better chance of being way better and more exciting overall. We're going to move on to the seventh prediction here, which is GTA 6 will end up releasing in Q4 of 2025, and it will somehow miraculously not suffer a delay. Sony will have the marketing rights for this game, and it will be a record-breaking title. It will skyrocket the sales of both the PS5 and the Xbox Series consoles and deliver a major boost to the entire gaming industry. It will end up living up to expectations and actually manage to surpass them in some areas. So, as I alluded to earlier, I think Sony is going to try to completely avoid releasing anything in Q4 of 2025, and this is the reason for it. I think that Sony doesn't want to release anything anywhere around GTA 6 because GTA 6 is going to move an absurd amount of PlayStation 5 consoles, but as I said, it's going to boost the Xbox Series consoles, and it's going to boost the entire industry. I think it will end up living up to expectations. Maybe the most unrealistic thing here is me saying that I predict it will not be delayed into 2026. Moving on to prediction number 8, the PS5 Pro will get a little bit more praise overall and not be viewed quite as cynically in 2025 as we see new games enhanced for it and developers getting more out of it for their games. So I do think that right now the PS5 Pro is in a somewhat awkward place where the majority of people are very cynical towards it. But there are people who are enjoying it, and there are games that are taking advantage of it. But I think really 2025 is going to be the year where the PS5 Pro shines, where we're going to see pretty much all major AAA games taking advantage of it, the biggest games of the year. And because developers would have had more time with this hardware, they're ultimately going to be able to get more out of it and do more with it. And I think because of that, it's going to help justify that higher price point and overall just paint a better picture. I'm not saying it's going to win everybody over, but as I said here, I think it's going to get a little bit more praise in 2025. Moving on to prediction number 9, Sony will announce 3 new first-party games throughout 2025, not counting smaller games like remasters, remakes, or collections. So the 3 studios, I should say, that I predict we will hear from are Sony Santa Monica, Sony Bend, and Guerrilla. So for Sony Santa Monica, I think some point this year we're going to see them announce their new big AAA IP that they've been working on for many years. I think with Bend Studio, we're going to be hearing about their, I guess it's a multiplayer live service game, but it might also have single player elements to it. They've been working on that for a long time. And I think we're also going to hear about the Horizon multiplayer game from Guerrilla. Now, some people might be thinking, wow, only 3 games from PlayStation first-party studios. That seems quite low. Well, again, I'm trying to make the most realistic predictions I can here. Look at how many first-party titles Sony announced in 2024. They were, again, kind of spaced out for each State of Play they did. They didn't reveal 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 first-party games. They basically revealed about 3 first-party games. So I imagine that's the cadence at which they want to continue to reveal these games going forward. Moving on to prediction number 10. Microsoft will announce even more first-party games for PS5, some already announced games, and some new games. that once announced, it will set a new tone that ends up convincing everybody that Microsoft is officially a third-party publisher. I thought that this was relevant to put on here because, we started this generation with Xbox being the main competition to the PlayStation console and PlayStation in general. 4 years into the generation, the competition is seemingly non-existent, and Microsoft is making it very clear, as they put it, that there are no red lines, and they're going to continue to release their first-party games onto PS5. And so I think that this is 2025, that is going to be the year where that is solidified. And yeah, the competition that we saw between the PlayStation and Xbox consoles in the past will be just that. It will be a thing of the past. Moving on to the next prediction here, we have prediction number 11. Rumors and leaks regarding the next generation consoles will be prevalent throughout 2025. However, they will be much more prevalent for the Xbox side, because I think at some point this year, it will essentially be confirmed that Microsoft is targeting a 2026 launch for the next generation Xbox. And when it comes to the PlayStation 6, the leaks or rumors regarding it will be much more sparse, because Sony is going to be releasing the PS6 at least 1 year after the next generation Xbox, and that's minimum. It could end up being 2 years, as we find out they might be targeting 2028. I think this is going to be relevant because, as we just talked about, I think that Microsoft is not necessarily going to bring any competition to PlayStation. However, that doesn't mean they're not going to be releasing a new console. And I do think that is something that Sony will have to pay attention to. And I think it's something everybody who is interested in the console space will at least be paying some attention to. I also want to add to this prediction that when it comes to the rumors and leaks regarding the next generation, a significant portion of the conversation will be focused on handhelds. We're going to move on to prediction number 12, which is that Sony will not be going day and date for PC with their single-player games. However, there will be an announcement of a first-party game launching for PC just 6 months after it launches on PS5. I think 2025 is going to be the year where Sony continues to experiment. We saw with Spider-Man 2 the shortest gap so far for one of their bigger AAA titles, that being 15 months. I think they're going to try to really push the envelope here with a game. I'm not going to try to predict what game it could be, but I do think it's going to be a bigger AAA first-party game, and they're going to make it clear that, yeah, it's going to PC just 6 months after it launches on PS5. Now, my final prediction here is number 13, and that Sony will announce another game going to Switch, but this time also the Switch 2 in 2025. But this game will be a small to mid-size experimental title, similar to like Lego Horizon Adventures. Now, as I said earlier, when it comes to the first-party games that I expect Sony to reveal this year, I was only expecting 3, but I'm not counting the smaller, more experimental titles or remakes or remasters. So I think that there could be a little something here that when it's announced, again, it's going to be just like Horizon Lego Adventures, where it's like, here it is, it's coming out this year, and it's also going to be available on Switch platforms as well. Now, I said that was my final prediction, but I actually almost forgot to put my real final prediction here, which is we will see Wolverine this year. It'll be re-revealed properly, but I don't think it's going to happen until the very end of the year. So I believe that at the Game Awards 2025, Sony will re-reveal Wolverine, and they will also give a release year alongside it of 2026. I had to make sure to throw that in here because when I was looking over this, I'm like, wait a second, we're going to go another year without seeing Wolverine at all? I don't think that's the case, but I do not think we're going to see it until the very end of the year. That's going to do it for my 2025 predictions for PlayStation. I tried to stack the first half of these predictions and focus them on, upcoming games, but obviously the second half is more about general platform stuff and wider gaming industry stuff. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts on my predictions. Let me know what your predictions are for PlayStation 2025. But if you did enjoy the video, please leave it a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.